If you are the type of person who has already designed your entire future in your head, this video might be about you. You have the logo picked out. You know exactly what your workspace will look like. You have even rehearsed the interview where you explain to everyone how your success story began. You can see it so clearly it almost feels like a memory. But in reality, you haven't taken a single step. Society and most self-help books have a very simple name for this. They call it laziness. They call it a lack of discipline. Sometimes they just call it being all talk and no action. But what if this behavior is not a flaw? What if it is not laziness at all? On the surface, it looks like you just do not care enough to start. But if we look a little deeper, the opposite is actually true. You are not holding back because you do not care. You are holding back because you care entirely too much. You care so much that taking an actual step feels incredibly dangerous. Let's look at the first mechanism happening inside your nervous system. Have you ever noticed that the more intensely you close your eyes and imagine your brilliant success, the more exhausted you feel when you open them? You might spend an entire night watching videos about successful people, feeling this incredible surge of motivation. You tell yourself that tomorrow is the day everything changes. But when you wake up the next morning, just opening your laptop feels as heavy as pushing a boulder up a hill. There is a reason for this, and it is not because you lack willpower. It is called the danger of positive visualization. When you imagine your success in vivid detail, your brain is actually tricked into believing that you have already achieved it. Your nervous system relaxes. Your blood pressure literally drops. Your brain hands you a premature reward, a rush of dopamine for a finish line you have not even crossed yet. By the time you actually need to do the hard, boring work, your body has lost the necessary positive stress required to trigger action. Your emotional battery is drained by an illusion. You are exhausted by a life you have not even lived yet. But that is only the first layer. The real issue starts when a goal becomes fused with your identity. What happens when wanting to write a book turns into believing you are a writer? Or when wanting to start a business becomes your entire personality in the eyes of your friends? When a dream gets this big, it becomes a protective armor. It is a beautiful, flawless armor, but it is so heavy you can barely lift your arms. If you actually start, and you fail, or your first attempt is just mediocre, it is no longer just a failed project. It becomes a threat to your identity. It becomes proof that you are not who you thought you were. Your nervous system recognizes this threat long before your logical mind does. So it chooses the safest route. It chooses to do nothing. Because if you never really start, you can never really fail. You would rather keep the dream perfect and untouched in your head than face the reality of creating something clumsy and imperfect. This is a survival mechanism known as self-handicapping. You are unconsciously throwing obstacles in your own path to protect your ego. It is easier to tell yourself that you just have not had the time yet than to look in the mirror and admit that you tried your best and it was not good enough. Let's bring this back to your everyday life. You probably do not just lie in bed doing nothing. You are actually very busy. You spend hours cleaning your desk. You buy new planners. You download complex productivity apps. You listen to endless podcasts about how to optimize your morning routine. You organize your folders perfectly. You are doing absolutely everything except the one difficult task that actually moves the needle. This is the most sophisticated form of avoidance. It looks so responsible. It looks like you are working hard. It soothes your guilt because you can point to all this preparation and say, "Look, I am doing something." But underneath that busy surface, it is just an invisibility cloak hiding your fear of failure. You are using preparation as a shield. Think about the physical sensation. You sit down at your perfectly clean desk, you open the blank document, and suddenly your chest feels tight. Your breathing gets a little shallower. Your hands might even feel cold. You look at your phone, face down on the table, and the urge to pick it up and scroll is almost painful. Your body is reacting as if that blank page is an actual predator. There is another crucial layer to this defense mechanism, and it has to do with the people around you. Think about what happens when you finally gather the courage to tell your friends about your big plan. You explain the concept, they get excited, they tell you how amazing it sounds and how capable you are. In that exact moment, something very dangerous happens inside your brain. It registers those nods of approval and those words of encouragement as actual progress. Psychologists call this a premature sense of success. By simply announcing your goal, your brain relaxes its grip on the urgent need to actually achieve it. You have already received the social validation that usually comes at the finish line, so the drive to run the race completely vanishes. This is why the more you talk about your dreams, the less likely you are to build them. The dream becomes a conversation piece instead of a destination. So, if this paralysis is not laziness, and it is not a lack of discipline, what is the actual way out? The first step is a massive fundamental shift in how you view your own inaction. You have to realize that you are not broken. You are not a useless dreamer, and you are definitely not just all talk or a fraud. Your nervous system is simply trapped in an outdated survival mode. It is actively trying to protect you from the deep emotional pain of falling short of your own impossibly high expectations. It is terrified of the gap between who you believe you are and what you might actually produce on your very first try. But you cannot live your entire life in this imaginary defense mode. The illusion of endless preparation is eventually going to hurt you much more than the reality of failure ever could. There is a specific kind of low-grade grief that comes from carrying an unlived version of yourself around for years. It does not hit you all at once. It accumulates slowly. It is the quiet, heavy sadness of watching time pass while your brilliant ideas stay locked inside your head, perfectly safe, but entirely unrealized. You never actually gave up. You just kept perpetually not starting. To break this cycle, your dream actually needs to get smaller, much, much smaller. Before it can become real, it has to lose its absolute perfection. You have to take off that heavy, beautiful armor of identity. Stop telling your friends and family that you are going to write a best-selling novel, and just become a person who writes one terrible, messy page today in absolute secrecy. Keep it completely to yourself for a while. Let the actual work be the announcement. Stop visualizing the grand opening of your successful business and spend 20 incredibly uncomfortable minutes figuring out how to register a simple domain name. Real, sustainable motivation does not come from borrowing energy from an imagined, glorious future. It has to come from the present moment. And that means holding your desired outcome in your mind while immediately and honestly confronting the very real, very boring obstacles standing in your way right now. Not as a fun thought experiment, but as a real reckoning. What exactly is stopping you this morning? Is it the fear of being judged? Is it the fact that you do not know the first step? When you confront the obstacle directly, the energy shifts. It requires you to prove to your nervous system through tiny, imperfect actions that you can survive the discomfort of trying and not being instantly perfect. You have to put down that massive, colorful bubble of the ultimate goal and just pick up one small, heavy, ordinary brick. It will not feel as exciting as daydreaming. It will not give you that rush of dopamine. It will actually feel deeply uncomfortable, clumsy, and painfully slow. It does not make for a great story at a dinner party. But that exact discomfort is the feeling of actually crossing the gap. It is the feeling of stepping out of the illusion and into reality. It is the feeling of finally starting. Now, take a moment and look inward. I want to ask you something very honest. Are you the type of person who just jumps in and figures things out messily along the way? Or are you the type who has been secretly preparing everything in your head for years without ever taking the very first step? Tell me your story in the comments below.